Hello, St. John Baptist Church, Al McClaney with the weekly stewardship video. This week, I want to concentrate on preparing financially for 2021. That's preparing financially for 2021. And before we start, as always, a disclaimer: no advice should be seen as a recommendation, as I am not a licensed financial advisor and it's for educational purposes only. You will hear me mention some investments or even different services. That is not meant as an endorsement. Do your own research, but if you research and find those are adequate or make sense for you, by all means do so. So last week I was telling you about the inspiration of the video came from my cousin Shelby, who was inspired by my mom, Betty McClaney. And we talked about leaving an inheritance and leaving a legacy. We use this Proverbs 13:22, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And we also talked about using your abilities. 1 Peter 4:10 says, God has given each of you some special abilities. Be sure to use them to help each other, passing on to others God's many kinds of blessings. And we're talking about how my mom used her talents as a teacher to pass on an inheritance to others. Well, that was talking about leaving a legacy. I want to slightly change that question from last week from what are you leaving as a legacy to what are you living as a legacy, which means currently, what are you doing? Because we know often more is caught than taught. So it may be you're teaching specific principles, or you may be living in such a way that that's creating a living legacy right now. So Deuteronomy 6:5-7, you must love him with all your heart, soul, and might, and you must think constantly about these commandments I am giving you today. You must teach them to your children and talk about them when you are at home or out for a walk, at bedtime, and the first thing in the morning. And so we talked about now we're talking about not only leaving a legacy, but living out that legacy. And for this illustration this week, I want to call on my dad. And I have used this picture before, and actually both pictures in previous videos, but I thought a great example to use on living your legacy. So my dad is Alfonso McClaney. I go by Al McClaney. And my dad's living legacy sayings that I will hear him say all the time is common sense is not common practice, know your history, buy term, and invest the rest. So let's take each one of these and how it has a specific meaning to me, but also I think it's a great general principle in it. And when he talks about common sense is not common practice, the Bible is a great reference for common sense and putting that into practice, because the Bible talks about, faith without works is dead, meaning that it's not enough to just read the Bible, which has a lot of good common sense, biblically based foundational principles, but you have to live them out. So my dad would say, yeah, it makes sense, but no one's putting it into practice. The other saying he always says is know your history. My dad was a civics and history teacher, and he loves to read about history. And so from a standpoint of the Bible is full of historical characters that we can look at and see their plight. We can see how the Lord had a relationship with them. We can see their mistakes. Like David, God proclaimed he was a man after his own heart, but we know David had all types of setbacks, all types of issues. I mean, David had a man killed who David was having an affair with. We can look at those, know those history, and Hebrews even saying you're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses as you run your race of faith. So we can look at the mistakes they made or the successes they had and apply them to our lives. The other is, he would say, buy term and invest the rest. Now, of course, you need to look at your own financial situation, but from a practical standpoint, he was talking about buy term insurance, and with the amount that you save, which it is less costly than whole life or even variable universal life, it tends to be cheaper, and take that money and then invest it or redeploy it. So of course you need to look at your situation. That's the practical sense, but I looked at it from an overall broader universal sense, in that find different resources that you could either stop utilizing, or you can cut back on the price and then take that and invest. And what inspired that was I read an article this week about how the stock market has been setting all-time highs, but African American people and Black people, we weren't participating in that because there's a small percentage, less than 50%, and I think the number was 33%, that actually own stocks. And they were taking into consideration 401k and mutual funds. So we were part of the economy, of course, but the part which was increasing, we are not a good number of the participants. So I looked at that last principle he had as a broader term. Look for things that you're spending your money on and cut back, or stop doing that and redeploy that money. Don't start living out of it, increasing your standard of living, but use that money to invest. And so another thing, my dad, he has living legacy doings. So he has sayings and he has some doings. And here I have a picture of Tim Lewis, and I've mentioned him before. He's the founder and president of a group called 4D Traders. Once again, disclaimer, this is not meant as an endorsement of his product or services, but if you do your own research and you go out to 4dtradersinstitute.com and you find it is suitable for you, by all means. They trade futures. So let me talk about my dad's living legacy doings. So each morning I know exactly where I can find my dad. About 5:30, 6 o'clock, he's reading his Bible study through a book called The Upper Room, or he's doing his devotional, or doing his Sunday school reading, or reading a calendar that I give him almost every year, which is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. So he's doing his meditation, and Bible study in the morning. My dad's also an avid reader of history books, trading books, because my dad loves to trade stocks, futures, options. My dad, through the years, has owned real estate. He has a rental property, has land. So that's another one he's doing. He's always believed in owning real estate. Early on, my dad started with mutual funds. He went through A.L. Williams, which eventually became Primerica. And that's where he learned that term, that statement, buy term, invest the rest. And he started off with mutual funds. Then he started looking at individual stocks. And now my dad is more of a trader, where he trades futures and options. Each one of these, he was ahead of me. So, and I used to say, well, options are so complicated. And I was like, wait a minute, my older dad, because he didn't start doing this probably until his 70s, trading options, I can learn that and do that. And then he started trading futures about 4 or 5 years ago. It may even be longer. And I said, I can do that. So he trades options and futures now on a regular basis. I do the same also. So I look at that as his doings. Bible study is the foundational, reading know your history, reading to be up on market and how to do different strategies when it comes to trading, owning real estate. And then, as I said early on, mutual funds and stocks, and now he trades options and futures on a regular basis. So he's living a legacy through his sayings and his doings. And I want to put that together to talk about, as we develop our 2011 or 2021 checklist, I have a resource for you. And I want you to include also in there of not only you doing the checklist for your financial moves in 2021, but include your children, include someone in your family that you can also teach this. So the resource, and I put my email up here, a_McClaney@yahoo.com. If you email me, I will send this edition, which is the January edition of Sound Mind Investment and Sound Mind Investing. So this is a service that I take, and if you're interested in it, it's about $99 a year. I get a weekly I'm not a weekly, but I get a monthly newsletter, and I have access to Austin Pryor's website, SMI or Sound Mind Investing website, which is updated all the time. I found this particular issue that comes out in December that gets you ready for the following year very helpful. And this edition is called Your 10 Most Important Financial Moves for 2021. And they've done this several years. If you will email, I will send you the PDF, no charge. You can use it as a checklist. So how would you use this? So here's a screenshot I took of one of them, and you'll notice it's saying 10 most important moves. You decide what those are. Well, if you look through the article, you'll see it'll give you different things to do. Each one has a number by it. By the time you finish the article, it's actually 60 different things that you could do. They start off and it tells you right here, you're about to read more than 60 suggestions for improving your financial condition over the next 12 months. And it's suggestions based on articles from previous Sound Mind Investing newsletters. So if you do take the service, you can always go back and read those articles. But the way you do this, it says we've placed a box next to each suggestion. As you read, put a check next to the items that you have the most relevance. And then that's what you're going to use as your plan going in 2021. This is what I want to accomplish financially to be better going into 2022. So here's a couple of them. They're spiritually and practical based, but all of the practical is backed up by scripture. Here's one like you said, I want to learn to trust God as a provider. So you check that one off. Seek the kingdom above all else. Maybe you check that one off. And here are some of the ones that are more practical, but of course, as I said, everything you're going to see is going to be scripturally based. So you want to create a spending plan in 2021. You've never done that. You want to really work on that. You want to develop a plan for getting out of debt. Again, those would be checked off on your, and it suggests 10. I would say at least 5, no more than 10, because you want to be able to set yourself up for success, but at the same time, stretch your faith, pray, and have God providing you the factor that makes it going to be successful. Here's another one that says, start with the core building blocks of successful investing. So you would check these off again. And I thought these were two great little sayings that I saw on Instagram, and one my wife sent me. So this one here says, don't go broke trying to prove you're not broke to people who are broke. So don't go broke trying to prove you're not broke to people who are broke. Maybe you want to put that in as your 2021 goal. Or this is what my wife sent me, Janine McClaney, and I think this is great. Stop buying your children what you never had and start teaching them what you never knew. In other words, if there are things that you were never taught about investing, about staying away from debt, about their scripture, over 2,000 scriptural references in the Bible relating to money, finance, and resources. So stop buying them and start teaching them things. Use your knowledge that you have now to help them going forward. And a reminder, again, here's the resource. And this is the copy and edition that I'll send you. All you need to do is email me and I'll send the PDF to you. So with that said, and just in the back of your mind, that article I read about African Americans and Black people not tending to have any participation in the stock market, not ownership of stock, less than 50%. And I said, I think the number was 33%. Let's go into looking at what the market's going to do for this upcoming week and what it did in the past. So you've been seeing this particular slide starting to decrease because the earnings season is starting to wind down. But we do have some pretty heavy hitters in this week's earnings release. So you've got Lennar, which is going to be key because the housing market has actually been on fire. They're reporting. You've got FedEx, and you've heard them in the news along with UPS because they are the key logistics component to get the vaccine out. And this week we saw the FDA give approval for emergency usage for treating, and now it's been given approval that that vaccine, maybe by the time you see this video, will have already started inoculating people. FedEx is one of the main carriers, FedEx and UPS, who will be conducting that. And then Winnebago, and there's another company called Thor. A lot of people during this pandemic were buying RVs, for instance, doctors, because they didn't want to take the chance of infecting their family, and they would be staying in the RVs. Thor was another company that saw a big boost, and I think Winnebago. So the last couple of videos, I've been putting a chart up of Dr. Copper, which /HG are copper futures. And we told you, and we said before, copper is a good indicator of where the economy is going. And these are copper futures. And you can see they have been on the rise. There's a slight dip this week, but this is is telegraphing that the economy, according to the copper futures market, which is pretty accurate, is forecasting that it's going to be in an uptrend, a bullish, or looking for a recovery definitely in 2021. So these are copper futures. Now, with that said, and we said the reason why copper is a good indicator because it's used in automobile manufacturing and in housing. And of course, we know in the tech industry. So it's still, even though they moved a lot to fiber, it's still a good indicator to use. So with that said, this may be a way that you can participate if you're not buying copper futures or they're doing options on copper. You can purchase, FCX is the stock symbol, and it's Freeport McMoran is a company that is, I think is a copper miner. And this is what we could call a proxy into the copper market. And you can see it's been on a tear. And again, disclaimer, this is not meant as a recommendation, but this may be one way you look at engaging in the copper market through this particular company. Do your research, see if it fits for your particular situation. And if so, if not, you may find another proxy. And the idea is, what can you do that maybe mimics the copper market? And that may be one way you engage. Here's the S&P 500. As we always get toward the end of our presentation, take a look at this market. It continues to trend up. There was a couple of hiccups in selling during the week. That was because of the back and forth of are we going to get a stimulus? We're not going to get a stimulus. Are we going to get the spending bill passed? Is 45 going to veto the defense spending? So that was creating a little volatility, but the overall for the week is up. So as we continue, and don't forget, expecting that what we call a Santa Claus rally, which happens in December. Retail so far, and I can tell you, my wife went out and she was like it's lit out there. It's she said it's like a regular Christmas season. People are out and about and people are buying gifts. And of course, we know e-commerce is rolling. And the chart, we're always in there, QQQ, same thing, continues to go up, had a slight hiccup. This week, where some selling related again to, are we going to get a deal, stimulus, or is everything going to just end when it comes to unemployment? So we'll see that, but I fully expect with the news of the vaccine, we probably have a pretty good week next week and build momentum going into 2021. So I want to end with a reminder. This is posted on YouTube. You can just do a search under my name on YouTube and you can subscribe, and you can even set up an alert to when I have a new video posted, which is weekly. Normally it's no later than Sunday evening. I've got it posted. Generally, the the highest probability is by noon on Saturday, I have everything done. And also the reminder, here's my email address. If you want a copy of that preparing for 2021, financial things you can do, just email me. I said there's no cost. I will email it to you. And also, any questions that you have, I'll be happy to deal with those in the email. So with that, once again, always remember that Jesus is Lord. He is the owner, but we are his stewards. And as my pastor always says, keep a good spirit.